It is 254 days to the next general election, and apart from the excitement created by the presidential race, the enthusiasm can also be felt at the county level, where Kenyans expect to elect the fourth set of county bosses. And today we'll be focusing on the state of devolution coming days after the end of the 7th annual devolution conference, which was held in Makueni County. This is Inside Politics. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. You can get interactive with us at KTN News KE. Use the hashtag Inside Politics. Now, empty seats marked the third and final day of the devolution conference that was officially closed Friday by Defense CS Eugene Wamalwa. Deputy President William Ruto was among those missing from the conference, skipping it to Nyandarua County, instead sending his Chief of Staff David Osinde to represent him. KTN's Daniel Kariuki reports on the resolutions of the three-day eventful conference.
Friday was the final day of the 7th and final annual devolution conference in Makueni County. About 27 key resolutions passed during the conference that largely delved in matters climate change.
Both levels of government shall strengthen structured intergovernmental consultations and ensure effective joint efforts and programming on resilient food systems.
Kenya is a very resilient nation, but never in our history has our resilience been tested to this extent. And that is why we need to come together and put our heads together to talk about this.
We must come with mitigation efforts to be able to deal with it. I'm very happy that all the speakers that came through were able to talk about this issue, and I know a lot will be able to come out of this.
But even as the conference came to a close, political undertones dominated the final day after Deputy President William Ruto, who was scheduled to officially close the governor's meet, skipped the event that had listed him as the day's chief guest and set to address the delegates in the afternoon.
We were expecting the Deputy President, William Ruto, to come and close the conference, but unfortunately he never turned up.
DP Ruto was represented by his Chief of Staff.
The leadership of the Council of Governors thought that this is an international conference that cannot be closed by the Chief of Staff.
I was invited at very short notice just yesterday by Governor Wambora, and he told me unahitajika Makueni mara moja.
For graciously accepting at the last minute to grace this function. You are a true friend in need, and we thank you most heartedly.
Wamalwa taking a swipe at the DP as he urged Kenyans to vote for a leader who would champion devolution.
But the greatest policy we have passed as a country is the devolution policy. That is the real bottom up. Let us interrogate these candidates on matters devolution, and let us ask ourselves, after the founding president of devolution, our next president, who is it that we can trust, who believes in devolution?
Ruto's move comes days after government officials, among them governors, snapped a meeting on the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, IBEC, that is chaired by the DP. Among CSs that missed the meeting were Treasury CS Ukuri Atani, his education counterpart George Magoha, Peter Munya, CS Agriculture, and Transport CS James Masharia. And on the heels of Chief Justice Martha Koome's rebuke of Ruto's allies, who want her to quit the committee overseeing election preparedness that she chairs. With the official closure of the 7th and final annual devolution conference in Makueni County, focus now shifts to the stakeholders on the implementation of the resolutions passed during this conference. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News in Makueni County.
And that is where we want to kick off our conversation this morning. The status of devolution. Kenyans are getting ready to elect the fourth set of county bosses. This is an exciting time for many voters because the understanding of devolution is slowly sinking in, and quite a number of resolutions came from Makueni, a total of about 17 resolutions, mostly to do with manufacturing, boosting health services, as well as tourism, and so many other things. But it is a political excitement that we want to focus on. Let me just introduce my guests this morning. Hesbon Owila, media and political communications expert, joining us by way of Zoom. Good morning, Hesbon, na karibu sana.
Morning, Fred. Asante sana for having me on your show.
Yes. Also in studio this morning, Dismas Mokwa, political risk analyst. Dismas, it's good to have you. The Duke of Mosocho, it's good to have you in studio.
Asante sana.
Yes. Mark Bichachi has also joined us, communication strategy. Mark, good morning. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We're also waiting for a video link from Kakamega. Ken Echesa, lawyer analyst, will be joining us from there as well. Let's take a look at devolution, gentlemen. And of course, there is excitement around the presidential race, but I want us to shift from that focus on the national politics to the devolved units now, because there's a lot of excitement. And let's be honest, 8 years later, we'll be electing another set of county bosses come next year. This has caused quite some excitement at the county level, and probably rightly so, because a lot of these services, and coming from the devolution conference, a lot of discussions are now being devolved. More services, more money, more resources going to the county level. Question, Dismas. Are we in the right place so far in as far as devolution is concerned, given the fact that the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the one thing that it gave Kenyans was the devolved system of government?
Well, in my view, devolution has been a huge success, although it has faced a lot of challenges. And the biggest challenges that our devolution in Kenya faces, actually, I would classify them into three parts. The first part is that the cash flows to the county governments has almost been irregular, always, so that the governors and the people who run these counties have got a challenge in their planning process. And it seems to me that the National Treasury will release resources to the county governments at their pleasure. So that makes planning a bit of a nightmare. And for accountants, they'll tell you that the cash flow, if you're not able to manage your cash flows very well, then there's a serious challenge. Then the second challenge has been corruption. And the Auditor General Times Above number has indicated that corruption seems to have moved from the national government to the county governments, because it's only in these county governments that you see those senior officials and the MCAs all of a sudden becoming millionaires overnight, as well as the governors, but the entire process is not a beneficiary. So one wonders, how come that you only get these skills in running a business after winning an election? That before you win an election, you are an ordinary Kenyan, but as soon as you win an election, then overnight you become a millionaire. And then, of course, the last issue, which is a big challenge, that most of these county governments are nothing short of employment bureaus. That they've employed a lot of people. That the amount of money which goes to the benefit of morale, that is the capital expenditure, most of the time is hardly 20%. So 80% of their resources, they usually go to maintaining the human resource, paying salaries, buying tea, and buying flowers. And in my view, that was not the essence of devolution, to create employment bureaus and to buy people flowers at a county level. So the governors have got a unique challenge to see how they can reverse that, so that at least on the worst case scenario, you've got about 70% of the resources going to capital development or capital expenditure within the county, and maybe 30% going to recurrent. And the last point has been what Article 10 and Chapter 6 to establish that we need to have a lot more people working in these counties who are not necessarily from that county. So in some counties you'll find up to 90%, others even 100% of the people who work within those counties are inhabitants of that particular county. So I think that has been a nightmare. And the last point would be that as a nation we need to be very careful.
Last point.
Yes, we need to be very careful that some of the governors, in fact, are becoming warlords. That the way they are managing their counties, they do it with a lot of impunity, mediocrity, and corruption. So that's something we need to check out.
Okay, but Mark, definitely we cannot say that it has been all negative. It wasn't going to be easy, the undertaking of actually coming up with devolved systems, devolved units, 47 of them. It was not going to be easy. Definitely there's something to celebrate this time, because as far as we are concerned, at least the structures are in place. Mark?
Well, Fred, I couldn't agree with you more. Rather than painting an overtly pessimistic picture of devolution, we need to look at very many counties that are really hallmarks of the success of devolution. Look at town counties like Kakamega, Kisumu. Look at even Moyale, which I had the privilege of visiting. I'm telling you, 5 years ago versus now, devolution has really brought serious impact into these particular places. Yes, there have been cases of corruption, just as there is anywhere. There is issues with funding, true, but I'll tell you, in every parastatal and every government institution, being that we are a developing country and how we collect taxes in this country, there's always delays in how things are funded, which is how and why government has the privilege of procuring with the promise to pay. So I don't think it is all bad news coming out of devolution. In fact, what we need to look to is the 17 resolutions that this devolution conference came up with. Of course, there's issues of climate change and handling the environment better, which is critical. One, not only for the health of our children, but also for the economic viability of our country. We know India, one of its biggest cities, had to shut down for a whole week. So we do not want to develop our country to the detriment of our health, that we are living rich, but we are going to die at 42. That does not make sense. Beyond that, let us look at what devolution is supposed to handle. Agriculture, healthcare, what happens in these particular spheres, which COVID-19 has emphasized the importance of Kenya to focus on. So we cannot continue to just talk about devolution as though it's a failure. Yet we know there are more level 5 hospitals today in this country than there were in the past. We know there are more roads. We know there is more infrastructure. The question we need to ask is, how do we strengthen devolution? And as we strengthen devolution, how do we honestly talk about the regional blocks that exist? So, for example, if Kakamega can be the hub of healthcare, for example, Kisumu be the hub for fishing, etc., and then put these counties together, because one of the critical flaws of our counties is that they are too small to be economically viable, which is why they're reliant on government. So there's the issues of being able to collect enough revenues, but there is also the issue of bulking up these counties so that they become better economic pillars in our country.
Let me bring Hesbon into this conversation. Hesbon, of course, we could say that the first 2 terms of these devolved units, political terms of these devolved units, basically were used to develop the structures. But now you can see the conversation changing. They're talking about manufacturing, and this has caused quite a lot of excitement at the 7th Annual Devolution Conference in Makueni. Different counties were showcasing products that have been manufactured within their counties. This is very exciting because among the resolutions that were presented, the 17 resolutions, they talked about boosting manufacturing at the county level. This definitely is set to create jobs. And what do you think is the main takeout of this devolution conference, Hesbon?
Well, I think just like Mark has put it, there's a lot of takeout from this devolution conference. The issue of climate change and how to have some sort of sustainable, development at the county levels. The fact that both the national government and the county governments committed to ring-fencing some resources for purposes of addressing, climate change issues is a big takeout for me. And coming back to the issue of manufacturing and the fact that, it's a bit obvious that the bulk of what has gone into devolution has gone into 2 things. Establishing the infrastructure, which has been minimal, but at least there has been that in so many counties. And then the other thing is we've had so much of that, resource go to, recurrent expenditure, things to do with employment and all that. And I think to a large extent, the next set of governors need to build on this and find a framework that would now capitalize on the infrastructure that has been built at the county levels. And from where I see it, the failure has not necessarily been on, the governors not delivering. The failure has been on the lack of a critical benchmark on which to assess, And I thought this being the last conference before we usher in the next set of 48 governments in this country, the governors ought to have given us, sort of a stock of what they've done, especially the governors who've served 2 terms, what they've done, the potential that they've created, what the gaps are in terms of what else can be done as a build-up, to maximizing on the manufacturing potential in the different counties. That for me is lacking. So in as much as we are happy that in so many parts of this country, we've seen development that wouldn't have realized were it not for the devolved units of government. We also need to take stock of to what extent has there clearly, more than slightly close to 350 billion annually that has been, devolved to these units, has been expended judiciously to change the lives of the people. I mean, it was quite unfortunate that 9 years into devolution, we still had counties that were talking about agriculture. They were giving us their agricultural products from the counties. I think we are beyond that. I mean, the 9th year, we should be talking about, the value addition, the infrastructure that has been created. I appreciate the fact that in the first few years, it was important to just have access, provide input to these farmers, enhance health and service delivery, but it reaches a point where now you go beyond. If agriculture has been taken to another level, if the health service has been taken to another level, I know Dismas here is working on a very grand project on medical tourism. To what extent then does a county that has improved its health infrastructure then leverage on that and even within just the country that we live in today, market itself as a medical tourist county, to enhance, the expenditure in that county by people who visit for medical and health care. To what extent are we seeing other counties like Makueni that have leveraged on manufacturing, Kitui that has done quite well on manufacturing? What is Governor Kibwana and Governor Ngilu sharing with the other governors in terms of how did they get it right? How have they invested in those areas? But then what is the potential? Having some glossy projects, 1 or 2, for me is not it. The key should be what has been invested, what has been achieved, and then what is the gap that remains, so that even if an investor is thinking of coming in, the investor knows that this is the potential, but this is the threshold that they've reached, and this is the gap that we can come in and plug in and make more money as investors as we create, employment as manufacturers in these counties. Those conversations, I think, for me, were lacking, and they were very, very critical. And I want to believe, even despite having those 17 resolutions, most counties should leverage on that, including my county of Migori. There's so much that Governor Obado has done, but there is still a gap that can be plugged in by investors. So to what extent is his team, for instance, going to package that, even as he's leaving office, and tell us that this is how we've changed the lives of Migorians? This is the potential that is still there to change the lives of folks in Migori. And if that is replicated in all the counties, I think Kenyans would even be a lot more critical of the next set of governors that they're going to give powers to take us to the next level.
I wait for Ken Echesa to join us via way of video link from Kakamega County. These are the kind of conversations we should be having during this political period. Oh, we do have Ken Echesa. I'm made to understand we do have Ken Echesa. Ken, a very good morning. It's good to have you with us. And you are talking to us from the county of Kakamega. We're discussing devolution and the status of devolution coming only days after the 7th annual devolution conference ended in Makueni. And we're just saying that these are the kinds of conversations that we should be having during this political period, that probably the focus should not be too much on the national government, but rather on the devolved units, because now the conversations about health, about agriculture, about manufacturing have gone to that level. What do you think?
Thank you very much, Fred, and good morning to you, Fred, and fellow panelists. I agree with what you're saying, that national politics should not be national at this level, at this time, and in this era. Politics should be regional. The more we nationalize our politics and concentrate on who becomes president, what is the presidential agenda for the candidates, the more we lose focus on our county governments and on our regional blocks. The purpose for devolution was, 1, to decentralize political power to the counties, and 2, to decentralize resources. If resources have been decentralized and we still depend on the national government for political direction, then we lose direction generally. Kakamega County, for example, should be independent in terms of political autonomy, economic autonomy, and rely on national government and participate in national politics only on matters that are of great national importance and matters that have not been devolved. And devolution has been a success story to this country. Devolution in the past 10 years has cured the discrimination in terms of allocation of resources and development and underdevelopment of some regions. We have regions which were segregated against historically right from pre-independence period to independence period. But with the coming of devolution, resources have been taken to these counties. How the resources have been used is another question. But let us have a comparison of two counties in Western Kenya, for example. If you enter Western Kenya from Eldoret or from Uasin Gishu, then you can just know that you're in Kakamega County. And when you are leaving Kakamega County towards Kakamega Mumias, you can tell when you are going to Busia. You can tell when you are going to Bungoma. The prudence in terms of financial management by the founding governors and the successors in the second term tells a lot about how devolution has transformed lives. Whereas the residents of Kakamega are saying that devolution is a success because they can see the products, same perhaps to Kisumu and Migori, other counties cannot see the success story of devolution because of the mismanagement of funds. As we celebrate 10 years of devolution, and I am happy about the resolutions in the Makueni conference, because those resolutions are meant to strengthen devolution. As we do this, we must perhaps have a conversation about the regulatory frameworks and review the acts of parliaments that are governing devolution. As we celebrate these in Kakamega, for example, and other counties, early childhood education has remained a challenge. And we have serious challenges, we have a serious crisis in the management of early childhood education. And in this era of CBC, unless counties, and with the support of Senate and county assemblies, comes up with a proper legislative framework and regulations to govern the conduct of early childhood education, we are losing in that sector. How can we regularize the health sector across the counties? Kakamega County Referral and Teaching Hospital has now the best equipments courtesy of Governor Oparanya. How can we compel the county government of Bungoma, county government of Homa Bay, county government of Siaya to adopt the similar approach in terms of health solutions, agriculture? How can we compel counties to have a similar approach in agriculture and other sectors? It is like we have devolved funds and devolved political power and left political power in the hands of county governors who've been held hostage by the county assemblies, and they do as they please. But one advantage about even the looting going on in the counties is that unlike before, where billionaires were created from Nairobi and people were stealing from Nairobi, which were few people, at least people are able to steal from the counties. And it has increased the number of thieves, the number of empowerment among the looters in the counties. This is not something to be celebrated,
yes,
but we are telling people we've brought resources closer home.
Yes.
So people who are stealing are your own sons. Can you replace them with the people who cannot steal and address the issues that devolution was meant to address?
Wakili, thank you for your contribution. Back in studio now, because the issue now is we are in an election period. This is a time for the voters to actually go back and decide that what we've seen so far, this is a way forward in as far as electing county bosses is concerned. Do you think this must that the voter, the Kenyan voter today, is actually well able to decide, okay, fine, we've done it twice, this time around we should do it different at the county level?
Well, first of all, my commiserations to Ken Echesa for suggesting that creating thieves, robbers, and thugs at a county level is a better proposition than having
No, he said that it's
Nairobi.
something not to be celebrated.
Okay. No, but it's important to clarify
yes,
that. You know, less than people then believe that one of the key performance indicators of devolution was to create thieves at a local level. And then number two, when you start saying that devolution is a success, the big question would be, who is actually defining this success? Is this the county assemblies? Is it the governors? Or is it the people who are receiving the services? And when you look at all these governors, there's a big range of, there's a difference in leadership. Like, for instance, Governor James Ongwae from Kisii has made Kisii Referral and Teaching Hospital to be a very solid facility that we even have people coming from outside Kisii for medical attention. Then if you go to West Pokot, you've got Lonyangapuo, who has made sure that his county does not suffer from food insecurities. That for the first time, West Pokot has achieved food security. But when you go up the road from where West Pokot is, the neighboring counties are having a food insecurity. So you begin to ask yourself, what is this magic that maybe Governor Oparanya has done, or Governor Ngwai, or Lonyangapuo, that the rest of the governors are not able to do? And in my view, what voters must look therefore is look at these leaders when they present themselves, and instead of voting in a manner which is irrational and emotional, they must look at the leaders' credentials. They must even at some stage ignore the parties that where these candidates are coming from, or the parties which have nominated them. Like for instance, in Nairobi, during the last elections, you remember Jubilee presented Mike Mbuvi Sonko as a candidate, and they told us, do not be worried. This gentleman is going to do politics, his deputy is going to run the show. But see the disaster we have in Nairobi. So in my view, the Kenyan voter must know that the resources which are going to devolution are actually taxpayer resources. This is our money. So we cannot just elect leaders because they can lie prostrate in the streets of Nairobi, or because they are populist politics, or because they can shout from the top of Mount Kenya. We must look at them, examine their manifestos, and look at the track record of success. And that is only not limited to the governors. It should go to the MCS, it should go to the speaker. Because again, what tends to happen is, most of these county governments are run like cartels. Mm-hmm. The governor, the county speaker, and the MCAs, they form a cartel. They allocate themselves contracts. They allocate themselves business. They come up with policies. They come up with everything. And at the end of the day, they do not serve morale.
Okay. This must allow me to take a break at this point, because I know this conversation will definitely continue. What kind of DNA should the voter look for when they're electing a county boss? Because I think most Kenyans have been used to entertaining members of parliament, or basically just politicians. But when you look at the kind of governors that we need, is not purely a politician, probably is someone who is better at management. That after the break.